We trust the lamb, not the donkey or the elephant.
So this critique might be a bit more philosophical or even theological. We undeniably, I think, live in the age of therapeutic, self-expressive individualism, and that's a really big term. Maybe it's not as bad as what do we do, clustering techniques, but it's big, and so I want to explain that for a second. All you really need to do, though, to understand this idea is watch any Disney movie, and you'll get
Yeah.
all the basic ideas down. Here's some of the fundamental beliefs. One, your true self is the self that's on the inside. Number two, the world around you wants to cage you by telling you who you are. Number three, you need to discover the true self inside yourself, affirm that true self, and authentically express that true self externally. And number four, the highest virtue in life is authentic self expression of that internal self. Now, we have to admit the fact that this is quite different from how humans have thought about the self for most of history. For most of history, the self was understood as existing in a web of interdependent relationships. You are a mother or a father or a son or a daughter, a parishioner, a deacon, a peasant, a lord, a town's blacksmith, a baker, a candlestick maker. We get the idea. In other words, while people understood that other people were different, they weren't individualistic about the identity of the self. You are who you are primarily in relationships. And being true to your true identity as a father would mean probably suppressing something that you might feel on the inside. And so we could maybe call that something like self-giving communitarianism over self-expressive individualism. And so this is the nub of my critique or question, really, because I'm wrestling with it. In the ancient world, I don't think you found yourself. You might push back by looking on the inside. It seems like you found yourself by looking around you and looking up at God. And our culture tells us to look on the inside. And I think this creates a terrible weight of anxiety because that means that I'm ultimately responsible for finding and defining and expressing myself. And so I fear this is part of why personality types have become such a rage. It's because they're a covert way to let something external, a personality test, define something that's internal, myself, my personality. And so they kind of alleviate the weight of individual identity formation by reinforcing it. Yes, you are who you are on the inside, and this test can quantify and tell you exactly who that person is externally. And again, that said, it's very different than looking around you. And I fear that sometimes we're so shaped by our environment that we start to live in the typology, like I'm a 3 or I'm a 2 or I'm an 8, that we believe to be true of us when we should be maybe focused on looking externally at other people in our vocations and in our lives. So that was a huge amount that I just laid on top of you. But let me just start with this question. I mean, do you fear that personality testing can reinforce this kind of self-expressive, look on the inside, express yourself individualism?
I think that those tendencies already existed and that the tests are just revealing that tendency. So I think that the same kind of people that are wired in such a way that they sort of do sort of navel gazing and they do sort of no one gets to decide who I am except me. I'm going to declare myself full throttle. All of that stuff that has nothing to do with the Enneagram. Like that's stuff that pre-existed, and we see that the scriptures testifying to that notion of the desire for each of us as people to be self-made, to decide for ourselves who we are, to cut ourselves off from the community, to get one up on everybody, whatever it is. And so I think that every age has its issues that it is working through. An example would be this: 125 years ago, arranged marriages were the way to go because it was your family deciding what was best for you. And then we move forward in time, and now we say, no, dating is the way to go. In fact, we've gone further than that. Now it's hookup culture because the self defines. Well, are we really saying that arranged marriages are the exclusive way that Christians should go? Well, are we really saying that only dating? Like there's some mysterious mixture between the self and the community, and we see that. Like, I am not totally my community. I am not totally myself. I am somehow both myself and a part of others. Honestly, not unlike the Trinity. There's that sense in which each of the Godhead is its own person and yet somehow is one. So when we come to this notion of like isn't the Enneagram just sort of another way of feeding this sort of therapeutic self-obsession? And therefore, shouldn't we throw it out? And I just kind of look back and I'm like, nothing has ever been abused more than the Bible. Nothing. If we go off the litmus test of, well, isn't it just going to be abused to the wrong ends? Throw the Bible out first. But we wouldn't do that because it's also the source of truth. So I think in this age in which we do have a tendency to be very self-obsessed, the Enneagram can definitely be gasoline on that fire. I don't think it started the fire. And I think that anyone who's doing their legitimate work with the Enneagram and they're really doing the work on themselves would get to a place where they would go, holy crap, I'm really kind of messed up here and I need other people. And I mean, the whole thing it's kind of negative, man. Like a lot of the early students of the Enneagram were reported having lots of depression and lots of deep emotional struggles because it was so negative. It was this thing that was showing them, here's all the ways you're broken. And so anybody who's like doing their real work with the Enneagram, like, I don't know, man, your self-esteem is going to be kept in check. It's like, you're not going to really like walk away going like, I'm amazing. You're going to walk away going like, I'm kind of awesome and a hot mess simultaneously.
I'm Patrick. Thanks for watching this video. If you're passionate about ending tribalism in the church and giving Jesus your allegiance, you're not alone. We have a podcast and a book. They're both called Truth Over Tribe. You can download the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can buy the book on Amazon. I hope you'll check them out.